The Finishing School. Earning the Navy SEAL Trident. By Dick Couch. Narrated by Arthur Morey. Copyright 2004 by SEAL Productions, Ltd. Forward copyright 2004 by Robert Carey. This unabridged audiobook is recorded by arrangement with Crown Publishers, an imprint of the Crown Publishing Group, a division of Random House, Inc., and was produced in the year 2011 by Tantor Media, Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Forward. Following their heavy use in the 2001 Afghanistan and the 2003 Iraq wars, American Special Operations Forces have received considerable attention and praise. The words of praise, while richly deserved, often become rhetorical myth-making. Dick Couch has written a book that gives listeners an opportunity to separate fact from myth about one of these special operations groups, the United States Navy SEALs. The facts of their current training and the details of their current missions take warfighting as mankind's most serious business. It is one worth avoiding, if possible. But if necessary, it must be fought with a professionalism that is constantly on guard against overconfidence and constantly alert to the mistakes that become a vital lesson taught with blood. Dick Couch's story makes it clear that today's SEAL must have great physical strength and endurance. Further, today's SEAL must have the intellectual capacity to master technical details that seem comparable to those required of medical or engineering students. Imagining what it takes to become SEAL qualified inspires great respect and even a little awe. However, what struck me in reading Dick Couch's story is the importance and value of human characteristics that have nothing to do with either physical strength or intellectual capacity. I was impressed with the emphasis on the character of these remarkable trainees. Today, a man's character is more likely to disqualify him from earning a SEAL's Trident than any physical or mental failing. Character includes such things as self-discipline, modesty, teamwork, consideration for others, and the ability to dial down, as quickly as dialing up, the aggression needed to be a successful warrior. SEALs are taught to do a job right the first time, to subtract complaints from their verbal arsenals, to accept real-time criticism of performance, and to never cease the active effort to learn how to do their jobs better. A few years back, during my second term in the United States Senate, and within a few days of each other, I heard two men with strikingly different careers address the importance of character with great eloquence and passion. The first was the Commandant of the U.S. Marine Corps, General Charles Krulak. The second was investor and Omaha, Nebraska native Warren Buffett. Commandant Krulak was convinced that character could and should be taught to his Marines. He was urgently including character skills in the basic and advanced training for recruits and veterans. He believed that good character was nothing more or less than establishing and articulating rules that could not be broken, no matter what the circumstances. Rather than making a man less flexible and unwilling to change when change was needed, good rules increased the chances that a Marine would be able to perform at the highest level possible by avoiding debilitating distractions and temptations. General Krulak was most excited about a summer program designed to give inner-city youth a taste of what character building could do for them. Some of these young people would later become Marines, which would be beneficial for the Corps. Some would return to their neighborhoods with a life-altering understanding of the power of good character to build a happy and successful life. Warren Buffett's attitude was identical to the Commandant's. At a conference attended by Nebraska high school students who had gathered to study the relationship between savings and wealth, something about which Mr. Buffett knows a great deal, he was asked this question: "Mr. Buffett, sir, no disrespect to you, but aren't most wealthy people jerks?" His answer, which I thought of as I read Dick Couch's book on SEAL training, was remarkable. "No," he said, "my experience is that wealth merely allows you to be a little more of what you already were, so that if you begin as a jerk and then become wealthy, you can be a really big jerk. But if you begin as a person with good character, you can use your wealth to do good. Mr. Buffett went on to say that 3 human characteristics were of dominant importance to a happy life: physical energy, intelligence, and character. He observed that the first 2 are most likely to be the genetic gifts of your parents, and that all of the students in his audience appeared to have plenty of both. The third one, character, is completely within our power to create. We do so one choice at a time. Finally, he said, to improve the chances that you will make the right choice at the moment when the fork in the road appears before you, it is best to establish rules ahead of time. Live by those rules until and unless something or someone persuades you the rule needs changing. That, it seems to me, is the secret to the training described by Dick Couch in his lively, informative, and intimidating book. Character counts, and today's U.S. Navy SEAL is taught to believe and act it every step of the way. Bob Carey. Introduction. On 11 March 2002, more than 1,000 people gathered at a memorial service in the chapel on the Navy base at Little Creek, Virginia. Many of them were Navy SEALs. They had gathered to honor the memory of Petty Officer Neil Roberts. There are a number of things worth noting about the passing of Neil Roberts, not the least of which is the heroic manner in which he died. In support of Operation Anaconda in the mountains of Afghanistan, Neil was a member of a special operations element that was to be inserted on a reconnaissance and scouting mission. When the big CH-47 Chinook helicopter flared for a landing, it came under heavy machine gun and rocket fire. 3 RPG rockets ripped through the helicopter, but they did not explode. Had they done so, the helo would have become an instant fireball. In addition to the RPG strikes, the fuselage was raked by machine gun fire. The pilot fought for control, knowing that his aircraft was mortally wounded. There was confusion in the troop compartment of the helo, and the deck was slick with fluid from ruptured hydraulic lines. A crewman slipped from the exit ramp and dangled from his nylon tether. Neil Roberts immediately went to his aid and hauled him back into the aircraft. In doing so, Neil fell from the helicopter just as the pilot regained control and veered away from the enemy fire. The helicopter pilot was able to crash-land his aircraft a few miles from the insertion site. All aboard were safe. All except Neil. He activated his beacon to let his teammates know he was alive and crawled away from the insertion site. There were more than 60 well-armed al-Qaeda fighters around him. Prudence, let alone self-preservation, would dictate that he go to ground and wait for help. But the machine gun emplacement that had so devastated the Chinook was still active. When his teammates came back for him, as Neil knew they would face another round of deadly fire. So Neil Roberts attacked. He maneuvered some 200 yards to a position above and behind the al-Qaeda gunners. With his grenades he destroyed the machine gun and killed the gun crew. Then the al-Qaeda came for him. Outnumbered, outgunned, and wounded several times, he fought until he exhausted his ammunition. He was cut down, and the al-Qaeda fighters dragged his body away. But SEALs never abandoned their own. In less than 2 hours, Navy SEALs, assisted by other British and American Special Operations personnel, were on the ground. After 8 hours of fierce, close-quarter combat, Neil's body was recovered by his teammates. More than 300 al-Qaeda died at the hands of the American and British special operators. 6 other Americans were to die in the battle. 2 Navy SEALs were seriously wounded. A stiff price, but thanks to the sacrifice of his special operations brothers, Neil could go home to his family. Neil Roberts was one of 12 children, including a twin brother. He leaves a widow and an 18-month-old son. Before Neil deployed to Afghanistan, he left a letter with his wife and instructions that it be opened only if he were killed. Kathy Roberts made that letter public, wanting everyone to know of her husband's devotion to his nation and his brother warriors. In part, the letter read, My family is the reason I am the person I am today. They supported and cared for me in the best way possible. Although I sacrificed personal freedom and many other things, I got just as much as I gave. My time in the teams was special. For all the times I was cold, wet, tired, sore, scared, hungry, and angry, I had a blast. I loved being a SEAL. I died doing what made me happy. Very few people have the luxury of that. Extraordinary? Yes. Unique? Not really. As you will see in this book, the Navy SEAL teams produce extraordinary warriors on a regular basis. They are courageous, disciplined, and very highly trained. They prize integrity, accountability, reliability, and a commitment to team. They do all these things with a passion. These men live in a world where personal honor is as important as professional military skill. It is with a great deal of pride and humility that I call Neil Roberts a teammate and a fellow warrior. That others willingly risk mortal combat to recover the remains of a fallen comrade is difficult to understand for many Americans. I'm sure it is a burden for the families of those men who died to bring Neil home. Yet this is not a new, nor is it an inconsequential aspect of the American warrior culture. A number of lives were lost during the Black Hawk Down battle in Mogadishu, Somalia, simply because we were unwilling to abandon our dead to the enemy. We will leave no one behind. But why is this? What is this covenant among our warriors that requires our remains to be carried from the battlefield, even at great risk to the living? This point was the central theme of the best-selling book, We Were Soldiers Once and Young, by Hal Moore and Joe Galloway. The book resulted in the movie We Were Soldiers, starring Mel Gibson. Both recounted the battle in the Ya Drang Valley in 1965, the first main force slugfest of the Vietnam War. 305 Americans were lost in that engagement, along with some 1,800 North Vietnamese soldiers. I personally asked Brigadier General Hal Moore, United States Army retired, the man who led the 1st Battalion of the 7th Cavalry in and out of that deadly valley, about this. "Dick," Hal Moore told me, "those of us who are left meet every year at the Vietnam Memorial Wall, and every year my men tell me the same thing. They followed me into that god-awful battle because I told them that I would leave no man behind. It was a sacred promise. They believed me, and I kept my promise." This may mean little to a widow or even to the extended family of a warrior who perished while fighting to recover the body of a fallen comrade, but it means everything to the men who have to do the fighting. They want to come home alive, if they can, but they want to come home. It's very important to men for whom facing death is an occupational reality. Teammate, buddy, shipmate, platoon mate, by whatever term used by these bands of brothers, it simply means that I love you. I will, if necessary, die in an effort to preserve your earthly remains for the sake of others who love you, your non-military family. It is not a business ethic or even an American cultural ethic. It is a warrior ethic. The death of Neil Roberts is significant for other reasons. His fighting and dying may well have been the first such action recorded live. An orbiting Predator drone saw it all and flashed this drama to commanders in Afghanistan and in the Pentagon. We may never see the actual footage of Neil's final moments, but I'm sure they would make a mockery of the reality TV combat programs. No posturing or trash talk here, just courage and professionalism in the face of certain death. There is, however, one thing that bothers me, and other SEALs I talk with share my concern. Navy SEALs are all about teammates and commitment to team. We're pack animals. In his last battle, Neil Roberts fought and died alone. Somehow, more than anything else, this seems an injudicious end for a magnificent warrior. Navy SEALs have died in nearly all conflicts since the first SEALs were commissioned in 1962. But among all those who have perished in combat, Neil Roberts will share a distinction with another fallen SEAL in the history of the teams. He was the first to die in his war. On 16 June 1964, Petty Officer Billy Mackin was killed in a firefight in the Rung Sat Special Zone, the first SEAL to die in the Vietnam War. Before that conflict ended, 47 of Mackin's brother warriors had fallen in combat. The number of SEALs who will be claimed in the war that began on 11 September 2001 is the stuff of future SEAL lore. Neil Roberts died over there, in Afghanistan, because a deadly and resourceful enemy has brought his fight over here, onto American soil. This war, unlike most American conflicts of the 20th century, is not to help some other nation with its problems. This is our war, a war from which we can neither walk away nor negotiate a settlement. It has to be won, and it is imperative that this war be fought and won on the enemy's ground, not ours. The reason is obvious. We go to great lengths to avoid civilian casualties in war. The primary objective of al-Qaeda and those who support them are American civilian casualties. Today there are 12 16-man platoons of Navy SEALs deployed around the world, as well as various naval special warfare combat and support elements. There are SEAL delivery team platoons and special SEAL strike elements. Many of them are in harm's way. The current war on terrorism is very different from the one that the first SEALs fought some 35-odd years ago. The stakes are higher. Our national interests are clearly threatened. We Vietnam veterans are fond of saying, "We deserved a better war." The current conflict may be just that for today's SEALs. But I am no less saddened by the prospect that Neil Roberts may be only the first of many to die before the threat to America from terrorism and those who support terrorism has been defeated. How we train and prepare our Navy SEALs to do this important work is related in this book. In September 1999, I began work on The Warrior Elite, which detailed basic underwater demolition SEAL training, or simply BUDS. The reader followed BUDS Class 228 as its members negotiated the basic 30-week course that every man must complete to earn a Navy SEAL Trident pin. This basic course and the famous BUDS Hell Week, along with the parade of cold, wet, sandy trainees staggering down the beach, is fairly well known. This course is more of a testing ground than a training course, as the high rates of attrition would suggest. The reality, if not the philosophy, of basic SEAL training is that if you want one good man, begin with 5 good men. When that one good man emerges from BUDS training, the serious business of molding a Navy SEAL begins. It takes a little more than 7 months to complete the BUDS course. Without question, it is a rite of passage, a process that seeks to find men who would rather die than quit. Such a rendering of the human spirit identifies men like Neil Roberts on a regular basis. But it only scratches the surface of that unique professional military skill set that a young warrior must master to become a Navy SEAL. In the fall of 1999, ours was a rich nation at peace and enjoying an unprecedented economic expansion. We were then worried about Y2K and consolidating gains in our stock portfolios. The senior leadership in naval special warfare was concerned about the number of veterans who were leaving the teams. The political climate then did not favor the military. There didn't seem to be any work for warriors, and corporate America was paying, and still does pay, top dollar for former Navy SEALs. So I was allowed to roam freely among the training and operational commands as I compiled my research for the Warrior Elite. As a retired SEAL, I enjoyed special access to the men and the unique culture that thrives in the Navy SEAL teams. I felt like an old grad on a visit to his fraternity house on a homecoming weekend. The climate today is much different. Fewer SEALs are leaving the Navy. Many who had submitted their resignation papers have pulled them, and several SEALs recently released from active duty are returning to the teams. They want in this fight. In 1999, I watched fine young men struggle in buds to become Navy SEALs. That was their goal, to become a Navy SEAL and to stand with the best. Now their goal is to fight with the best. The road to becoming a SEAL has changed little since 1999, but what lies at the end of that road has changed dramatically, perhaps forever. The climate for a writer, even a former member of this exclusive club, has changed. I still enjoy the trust and goodwill of those SEALs on active duty, without which my work would be impossible. The warrior elite, I am proud to say, has strengthened this trust. "Dick," they tell me about my description of Bud's training in Class 228, "you got it right." I believe Randy Wallace, the screenwriter and director of We Were Soldiers, got it right. I heard Hal Moore tell him so. It's a powerful thing when those you admire and respect feel that you tell their story well. But 9/11 changed much, and it changed how writers like myself tell our stories. I no longer enjoy the unlimited freedom I had when I did the research for the Warrior Elite. My movement among the various SEAL commands is still allowed, but access to training venues and the operational components is closely monitored. This is no longer basic training. This is about the finishing school, where the combat skills of Navy SEALs are taught. There are tactics, methods, and procedures that I observed, but will be restricted from putting in print. The Navy SEALs in this book are real, but their names, for the most part, have been altered. This is for their protection as they prepare to go in harm's way, and for the well-being of their families, who must wait for their safe return. These are restrictions I welcome. These are my brothers, and we are at war. In my research for this work, I observed SEALs in advanced and pre-deployment training during the year that led up to the Iraqi War. As I put the finishing touches on the manuscript, the SEALs who fought in Iraq were just being rotated home. All indications are that they completed a marvelous chapter in the battle history of the teams. The men I talk about fought in that war. By the time this volume on SEAL training reaches the bookshelves, these Navy SEALs will be moving on to other campaigns in the war on terrorism. The Warrior Elite was a book about endurance, courage, and testing the human spirit, to find men who will never quit. The finishing school is about all that and more. It is how we train Navy SEALs for war, to fight and win at all costs. In addition to the 7 months that it takes a man to get through BUDS, it will take another 2 years to make him a combat-ready, deployable Navy SEAL. After 30-some months of the most intense military training in the world, he is considered an apprentice in the SEAL teams. A new guy. After his first deployment, he is then a journeyman in the business. To replace a man like Neil Roberts, it takes someone with courage, training, and experience, combat experience. Men like Neil are never easy to find, but the system that found and trained Neil Roberts is in place. And we live in a world that provides ample opportunity for Navy SEALs to gain experience in combat. For the men that you will soon hear about in SEAL qualification training, combat is at least 2 years away. For those you will meet in the West Coast operational SEAL teams, it is much closer. This is how they train. This is how the Navy takes the raw steel from BUDS and tempers this material to make a modern SEAL warrior. Chapter 1. The Prerequisites. The Basic Course. There are a number of things a young man must do before he begins the serious business of SEAL finishing school. Before the Navy or Naval Special Warfare will invest the time and money to train a man to be a Navy SEAL, they want to know 2 things. Is he smart enough, and is he tough enough for this business? SEAL candidates are screened carefully for mental aptitude, and most have the required mental ability. Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, or BUDS, is designed to test whether these SEAL hopefuls have the toughness. What we are talking about here is what the SEALs call Hackett School, or Pain 101. In the culture of the Navy SEAL teams, it all begins at BUDS. Perhaps no other military training carries with it the mystique and pain associated with this training. The warrior elite focused on this basic course. It is the crucible that takes qualified young sailors and naval officers and makes them candidates for SEAL training. Note that I use the term candidates for SEAL training. But BUDS is where the real making of a Navy SEAL begins. Granted, the price of admission to the qualification course is steep. The coin of this culture is counted in terms of sweat and pain. Men are vetted in BUDS for their commitment and determination. It's a measure of heart. It is an accomplishment in itself to successfully complete BUDS, but the basic course is no more than an admission slip to advanced SEAL training, the finishing school. The eternal debate about BUDS is whether this is a training program or a testing ground. In reality, it is both. First of all, it is an elaborate tradition-bound screening process that seeks to find men who would rather die than quit. This is accomplished with a punishing diet of physical conditioning, cold water, and lack of sleep, the same conditions in which Navy SEALs are expected to operate. BUDS trainees learn early on that unless they can come to terms with being cold and miserable for extended periods of time, they don't belong here. The training is brutal by design. BUDS also lays the foundation for basic SEAL operational skills. Many of these skills are fundamental, military special operations tradecraft, and others are maritime-centric skills. The Navy SEAL is a versatile animal, capable of many of the disciplines of other SOF, Special Operations Forces, components. The other SOF components, such as the Special Forces, the Rangers, and the Air Force Special Tactics teams, also conduct diving and small boat training, but no special operator in the SOF community is as comfortable in the water as a SEAL. For the others, water is an obstacle. For SEALs, it is a refuge. While SEAL capabilities do not stop at the water's edge, SEALs are, and will remain, the primary special operations maritime force. Before a man can become a SEAL, he must first become a frogman. He must excel in a variety of military skills, but it is essential that he be comfortable in and under the sea. Again, it all begins at BUDS. This basic course, start to finish, is a 30-week endurance test. The attrition is dramatic as many young men discover that they have neither the heart nor the physical stamina for this life. Only about 1 man in 5 who passes the screening test and is admitted to BUDS training will qualify to wear the Navy SEAL Trident. BUDS is conducted at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California. The center, as it is called, is on the Naval Amphibious Base, a naval base that straddles a sandspit that connects the near island of Coronado to the city of Imperial Beach, situated just north of the U.S.-Mexican border. This famous sandspit is known as the Silver Strand, or simply the Strand. INDOC. BUDS training is conducted in 3 phases. First phase, physical conditioning. Second phase, diver training, and third phase, land warfare. In order to prepare trainees for phase training, SEAL candidates must complete a pre-training course called the Indoctrination Course, or INDOC. Officially, the purpose of INDOC is to physically, mentally, and environmentally prepare qualified SEAL candidates to begin BUDS training. Prior to the beginning of INDOC, trainees arrive at the Naval Special Warfare Center. For the most part, this is physical conditioning without pressure, a time to tune up for the ordeal ahead. BUDS trainees come to the Special Warfare Center from a variety of backgrounds. Newly commissioned ensigns come from the Naval Academy, the Naval Reserve Officer Training Corps, NROTC, and a few from Officer Candidate School. Most classes include fleet officers, lieutenants or junior grade lieutenants who come to BUDS after a tour aboard ship. The leadership of these seasoned officers is often critical to the success of a BUDS class. Many of the enlisted men come from boot camp, usually by way of a Navy school that will help them qualify in the...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?